Hey everyone, you're here with Mark on Perfect Gardens TV. So today we have the second question from East Coast Space. If you haven't checked out our first video about what are the benefits to using Drops Balance as a foliar spray, make sure to check that out. That was his first question. His second one is also, what is the difference between EM1 and BAM? If you don't know what BAM is Perfect Gardens' brand new product that we came out with around 8 months ago. And what does it stand for? It stands for Badass Microbes. So that's why we call it BAM, right? Because that's how you're going to solve your problems with soil biology. Being called Badass Microbes, I mean, it really has to be badass to come up with a name like that, right? So in this video, we're going to explain the difference between EM1 because in my viewpoint, EM1 was the best biological product on the market. From my opinion, I think we've created a superior product, and in this video, we're going to get into it. Okay, so last comment you said was to add, I haven't had any problems with the grow, just wondering what the added benefits would be. So let's go ahead and get into it and answer this question. What is the difference between BAM and EM1? So this is the manufacturing process for both products. This is, again, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. This is my opinion. Obviously, they have a proprietary formula for their product, so they're not going to tell you exactly what's in the product. And all they claim is the lactobacillus, right? And that's for legality purposes. If you get them on the phone, they'll say that they have 4 more, but then they'll also make a claim that they have up to an 80 if you have a one-on-one conversation with them. But they won't tell you how to make it, right? Actually, there's a lot of different ways how to make it. It's just, there's only a few ways when you taste their product. I've been using their product now for 3 or 4 years. So you start to become familiar with it. Me and my daughter actually drink, I take 5 teaspoons and some apple juice in the morning for my healthy gut biology. And my daughter takes 2.5 mLs of BAM and also EM1. So very safe products to digest, or even for your plants, they're incredibly safe. But let's go into the difference between them. And I totally support the company. So if you're using EM1, you're using a great product. I just want to be clear with that. I just, at the end of the day, when I get into the nitty gritty, I always like to create the best product. So we'll get into it. So this is how you make it. They get RO water, they get rice, they let it ferment for a few days. Then they get milk as a food source. They let that ferment for 3 days to up to a week until it separates into something called curd, right? And it's a big, thick white material that surfaces to the top, and then they sift the material. And if you haven't checked out our video of how to make BAM, make sure to check out that video because I walk you through the process. But in that video, I'm not totally clear on the last part, adding molasses. In this video, this is where I'm going to clear up the why. So anyways, they add the milk for a food source. Then after that, they dilute it with water and molasses and ferment it for another 4 days. From their concentrated, they ferment it, and then they add apple cider vinegar. Again, this is my opinion. They say that their process is a proprietary formula, but the reason why they use apple cider vinegar is because it drops the pH below 3. And when you drop the pH below 3, you make the bacteria inactive. And so the second the pH rises above 3, the bacteria can start to become active again. So they become dormant, basically. And that's what makes their product shelf stable and able to be used and shipped all over the world efficiently. So what's the difference with BAM and why is it better? We do the similar product, but in the beginning, we don't use RO water. We treat our water with the Drops of Balance. So that cleans the water, and then it adds a whole essential array of trace minerals. If you haven't watched past videos where we talk about the importance of the 24-hour enzymatic production cycle, bacteria can produce enzymes every 24 hours. So when you get the bacteria off of the rice initially, so you can use it to treat the milk, for those 3 to 5 days it's sitting, the bacteria are thriving because they love sulfates. And when you treat the water with Drops of Balance initially, the bacteria just start to take off, and they have a whole essential array of trace minerals that they can start to produce enzymes. Because that's the goal, is to get enzymes. From there, we then take milk, similar to what EM1 does, and we treat the milk with Drops of Balance again at a rate of 5 mLs per gallon. So it cleans the milk, and then also it adds trace minerals to the milk. So again, milk just isn't the food source, but we're adding in the trace minerals that deals with the law of minimum situation. So it boosts up even more enzymatic production over a course of a few weeks. So before we make it shelf stable, our product has been producing enzymes for, like I said, a few weeks. And then after that, we then drop the pH with DAB rocks. And DAB rocks is the most concentrated form that someone could purchase on the market. So initially up there with EM1, they use apple cider vinegar to drop the pH. And that's the only benefit to the product, is making it shelf stable by dropping the pH. That's the only benefit to apple cider vinegar. It has no other benefit to your plants. The third difference, treating the water with the minerals all the way through the process and allowing enzymes to be produced for a few weeks, makes the product better in itself. And then when you treat the water with the raw materials that drops the balance is actually made out of, you drop the pH. And so what you end up having basically is a product that you have drops the balance and bacteria combined. And so one of the first things you might be thinking is, well, you might not need drops balance anymore. And the issue with this is, if you treat your own tap water, you don't want to use just bacteria, because the chlorine actually voids the environment of bacteria. That's the job. And the chloramines, even if you go out and let it sit outside for 24 hours, you still have the chloramines that dramatically mess up the biology's ability to function properly. So the cool thing about bacteria, though, is that once you inoculate your environment, they'll keep reproducing. Obviously, all companies are going to recommend that you re-inoculate, even for me, where I'm going to explain why you want to re-inoculate. But the main thing is the reason why you're having to re-inoculate is because we either haven't cleaned up the soil of heavy metals, or we're reintroducing toxins that void the soil of bioavailability, which then is the reason why you have to reintroduce or re-inoculate bacteria, or keep doing. That's the mindset, because we're reintroducing toxins that hurt the biology. So we're introducing good guys and bad guys, right? The bad guys are winning the fight in a sense, and we're putting more fresh good guys to battle for us. But the bad guys are stronger because they're heavy metals, and they're going to stick around, and they're in a form that throws off the electrical conductivity of the soil. And that's really what the bacteria produce as they move around, the sensitivity of the electrical conductivity. Do you have to not use drops balance anymore? I think that's an important question to answer. And I'm going to explain it by actually how you use these products. And let's see if I'll get into that on the next slide. How you use them is, the thing about it is that because we're reintroducing toxins through our water, and that's just going to be an inevitable issue. Through our atmosphere, rainwater, everything's toxic. These heavy metals are coming down from the sky. I mean, I don't even want to get into some of the conspiracy theories around that stuff, but we're reintroducing these toxins back into our soil environment, and they're settling back onto the surface of our soil. So when we reintroduce just bacteria, and yes, there is things in BAM that's going to help combat some of the toxins in the soil that hinder the bacteria. How you really want to go about this is, it's going to take a year or two for your soil to actually, well, it depends actually how you use it. If you treat your soil one time at a rate of 5 mLs per gallon, it actually locks up all the heavy metals in your soil. And we recommend you do that once a year, so that all the heavy metals get locked up. They're no longer water soluble, and they no longer affect your EC, and they're no longer capable of being taken up by your plant, which makes your food healthier, right? And then it also allows your bacteria to thrive. And obviously, when you're buying drops balance, you're buying it in a higher concentrated form, so it gets less expensive as you go up on the sizes. With BAM, if you use it at a rate of 1 ounce per gallon, and that's for lawns, you use it once every 1 week to 4 weeks, anywhere between that, you'll use it at a rate of 1 ounce per gallon. This is the concentrated. I'm going to explain actually another way of how to use BAM. But if you use it at a rate of 1 ounce per gallon, you're getting about 0.5 mLs of drops of balance per gallon. When you produce a gallon of BAM at a rate of 1 ounce per gallon, that's like treating 2.5 gallons of water for drops of balance, right? When we used the raw material, we used it to drop the pH, but we also used it as an essential food source for the bacteria right when they get active again, so that they could produce a full set of enzymes initially, right? But it's not enough to really lock up all the heavy metals and to stop that process. So that's it on that. Just so you know how much is in there, right? When you use 1 ounce per gallon, it's good for around 2.5 gallons if you treat it at a ratio of 1 ml per gallon. That's the concentrated form. So in a sense, 1 ounce per gallon, right? If you bought a 16-ounce bottle, you'd be able to produce 16 gallons of water, or you'd be able to roughly use it for around 50 gallons of water for if you're using it in the sense for the drops of balance aspect. For fruit trees, for shrubs, you'd be using it every 2 to 4 weeks at the same ratio, 1 ounce per gallon. Veg and flowers, every 1 to 2 weeks at a ratio of 1 ounce per gallon. For cuttings and new pottings, you can use it once a week at a ratio of once per gallon. So for this one though, for cuttings, for example, you're not going to use the whole gallon. Remember, bacteria takes off, and as long as we don't reintroduce heavy metals or contaminants into our environment, you're not going to use the whole gallon for your cutting, right? You might use a cup of that concentrated material. And then with that cup, you would spread it around the root system in the sense that 1 gallon would be good for 10 to 20 separate plants, because you're inoculating your soil so your bacteria could take off. And if you're using the drops balance to treat your water, that's the reason why you're able to go so far for a week or two without having to re-inoculate your soil. If you are using liquid fertilizer or even dry amendments, these are very contaminated sources. It doesn't matter what company you get it from. The source is dirty. Okay, so we're constantly reintroducing the problem, right? But as long as you're treating the water with drops of balance, you don't have to use as much BAM, right? Because the BAM is there to keep re-inoculating, having the bacteria grow, and the bacteria love sulfur. So they're just going to take off. Hydroponic plants in water, you're going to use it at a ratio of 1 ounce per every 20 gallons once a week or every reservoir change. Hydroponics, substrates, so you're going to use 2 to 4 mLs per cup of water. So how to activate or ferment BAM? This is what I recommend to do. It actually makes the product so much more cost effective, and you're able to use it throughout every watering. And again, with this situation, if you use it at this ratio, because you're diluting it so much, the minerals are, again, they're really for the bacteria. They're not there to clean the water. It just helps create another barrier, resistance, so the bacteria can thrive that much longer to help inoculate them quicker and get them more active in your environment faster. So to activate it, you're going to need a contraption like this, or even just a container. You're just going to want to go back and open up the container every few days because it will off gas. And so the recommendations is a 20 to 1 to 1 ratio. So 20 parts water to 1 part molasses to 1 part BAM. And so what does that mean? So for 30 ounces of water, you'd use 1.5 ounces of molasses and 1.5 ounces of BAM. If it's 60 ounces of water, it'd be 3 ounces and 3 ounces of molasses, 3 ounces of BAM. If it was 120 ounces, which produces just a touch over 1 gallon, it'd be 120 ounces of water, 6 ounces of molasses, 6 ounces of BAM. And what do? You wait a week, and you wait until the pH is between 3.2 and 3.6. At that point, your ferment is ready to go, and you're going to use it at a ratio of 15 mLs to 1 ounce per gallon every time you water. So the other situation, you use it once every couple weeks, basically. And you can see this ratio. This is the concentrated form. When you use it right here, we're activating it. We're actually exploding the colony of bacteria. And the thing about it, though, is the material really only is good for around 90 days. Versus right here, the shelf life over here, because we drop the pH of the product, the shelf life is anywhere between 1 to 2 years. Legally, that's kind of what we have to say. But as long as the pH stays under 3, the bacteria will stay alive. So over here, when you ferment it and add water, your pH is going to increase. So it's going to activate the bacteria. It's going to take about a week. This is a one-way valve that allows the bacteria to off gas, so you don't have to come back and recheck it. Just come back, check the pH in about 7 days, and from there, you're good to go. And then obviously now at this point, you've now produced 32 ounces or a half gallon or a gallon of product that you can use every gallon of nutrients. So if you're using it at a ratio of 1 ounce per gallon, and there's 128 ounces in a gallon, you now have produced a concentrated bottle for 90 days, good for 128 gallons, versus if you use the concentrated situation at like 60 ounces, it's only good for 16 gallons of water. If you ferment it and if you use it at a 15 ml ratio, it ends up being good for 256 gallons of water. So if you fermented, a 16-ounce bottle ends up being good for 256 gallons of water versus just 16. I openly talk about this. So I actually learned this from EM1. I know they don't talk about it much anymore because obviously if you ferment your own product and activate it, it ends up, sells much of it. That's not my focus. My focus is to teach you guys that as long as you clean your tap water, that's why I still recommend a ratio of 1 ml per gallon for drops of balance. and you activate your BAM, you now have, for example, the 16-ounce bottle of Drops of Balance is good for 500 gallons of water, right? This BAM product, after you ferment it, is going to be good for 256 gallons of water. So a 32-ounce bottle of BAM with a 16-ounce bottle, that's good for 500 gallons of water. And that's if you're using it for tap water. If you're using it with RO water, a 16-ounce bottle of Drops of Balance ends up being good for 1,000 gallons of water, right? And so your BAM product ends up being good for, like I said, 256 gallons up to 500 gallons of water. And that's really how you make these products extremely cost effective. In the next few months, I'll be moving. I'll be finally being put into another situation where I can start growing again. And I'm looking forward to presenting some really unique and interesting information to the community to help people understand how the plants work. I'm asking a favor from you guys. Please, if you go into your local hydroponics store, please ask for these products, Drops of Balance and BAM. Let them know how well they work. Encourage them to carry the products on the shelves. Thanks so much and have a great grow.